All right. Welcome to the Save a Warrior podcast. We've got Lance Santiago on here with me and Larry Turner. And again, I'm Jake Wehr. Lance has been an invaluable asset to Save a Warrior, and we'll be getting into some really neat stuff that he's put together that's coming up here soon. But we really want to dig into your story, Lance. I know you were in the Marines and you were also a first responder. So I call that a double dipper uh,
Thank you.
in who we work with. Yeah, thank you for your service, Lance.
Thank you. Thank you.
But yeah, what we're really looking to get into here is, just so other people can relate to it. What is it that led you to Save a Warrior? What was going on in your life that landed you in a seat?
Well, yeah, at the time, I really didn't know what was going on in my life, and that was a problem. Um, I had become severely and suddenly suicidally depressed in about a snap of a second, and I didn't know what was going on with me. Um, Through a series of miracles, I ended up in Save a Warrior because I had never even heard of Save a Warrior before. And I had just heard about it 5 days before I had a Glock 27 pressed to my temple up in the Eagle Hills in my Jeep with a half a handle of vodka between my legs and the other half of a handle of vodka in my system. Uh, like I said, I didn't know what happened. I didn't know what was going on with me. I just know all of a sudden I had this voice in my head that was saying, "Do it, do it, do it, do it, do it," and another voice inside that was kind of saying, "Hey, how do you get into an ice cold pool of water? You just jump." And I had never had a gun to my head before, and I certainly had never had my finger on the trigger before. Um, so that was a wake up call for me. And shortly after that, I had a rostering call with you, Jake,
Yeah.
and I broke down on the phone. I mean, I couldn't even talk. And it started off with damn, already getting emotional about it. But it started off because one of my Marines had died a week before, and I thought that was part of the catalyst to it. But I was wallowing in self pity. I was thinking my wife and my kids didn't love me, didn't care about me. I was alcoholic. I didn't know I was alcoholic. And I was just at the end of my rope. And when Save a Warrior showed up on my radar, my first thought is, I'm not worthy to go to this. This is for people that have PTSD. I don't have PTSD, and I'll still say I don't have PTSD. Because I was a Marine for 7.5 years. I served in the infantry. I served as a fast team leader. I was a cop, and I worked in the ghetto. Um, I worked homicide, narcotics, gangs. I was on the sworn in with the FBI, and we did a lot of undercover stuff and wiretaps and all this cool stuff. And I saw a lot of stuff. I saw a lot of things, but I never shot anybody. I never got shot. Nobody ever got shot in my presence. So, I don't have PTSD. Why should I go to a program for PTSD? And then like I said, through a series of miracles, we can get into that later if you want. But I ended up going, and once the process started, I realized very quickly I was the most messed up person in the room. And it wasn't until, well, at the end of that day, when Jake Clark was, writing all over a whiteboard and explaining all kinds of things, and at the end of the day, my jaw dropped.
Dude, that's how it
And
hit me too. You just penciled out how I live my life in an hour flat. Like, what else do you have to teach me? I'm open now.
yeah, my jaw hit the floor, and I was like, I get that. I get that. All I got to do is not do that. And I was like, okay, I'm good, man. I'm good. I didn't realize that, to undo 57 years worth of stuff, it might take a little more than just having a epiphany all of a sudden that, hey, I get what that guy said. All I got to do is reverse everything and I'm good. So, once I saw that, and then, I mean, I was leaned in from the very beginning. I mean, I had to be, because I was hanging on by my fingernails by the time I got to Save a Warrior. I mean, I had the gift of desperation. I knew I needed to change something, and I was finally open enough to listen and be able to take some direction from people. Because before that, you couldn't tell me anything. I knew everything. I had the answers for everything, and I didn't want to ever ask for help because that's weakness. I didn't want to ever show vulnerability because that's weakness. You know. So
Can I pause you right
when
there
I
real quick?
yeah
Because
yeah
that's such a big thing that you just hit on. Because in looking at who really thrives and does the work and just does it diligently when they leave Save a Warrior, and who's probably the best fit for the seats, it is that gift of desperation that you mentioned there, and the willingness to let go of knowing everything. Because I always played knowledge god in my life too. I think I got it all figured out. Though the more I've learned, the more I realize I don't know anything. But that and being willing to be vulnerable, the how, honest, open, and willing, vulnerability, accountability, and coachability. If you can come in to Save a Warrior with that, if you're out there right now and you're desperate and nothing you found has worked so far, and you're ready to fully surrender and, just let someone else take the lead for a little while and just show you what's worked for so many others, and you're willing to let that in, then you're in the right place and you're ready to, submit an application here.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, my biggest fear about going to Save a Warrior was that it wouldn't work for me. I was scared to death that it would not work for me because, I'm special and unique. So why would it work for me? But as soon as Jake Clark opened his mouth, his very first opening line in that cohort, I was shocked, first of all, but I absolutely knew at that point forward that I was in the right place. And I was hanging on every single word that was said by everybody. Saved my life, man.
What hit you right there?
I was going to die. There is no doubt. I was going to die because I had no other choice. I mean, I had this voice in my head saying, "Do it, do it, do it," with a gun in my hand, and thinking that I was no longer, worthy to be, you know, father, husband. I felt I had failed everywhere, and so I knew it was my last stop. And so when Jake presented the way he did and was speaking my language, I was like, "Oh shit, I'm in the right place." And then he said there was a 500-day plan. I lost it. I'm like, thank God. Thank God there's a 500-day plan because I know I need something after this. I know I am not going to get cured in 72 hours. And that's when I broke the container, as they say, right? I'm the one that started crying first, and it was because of that 500-day plan, which I've now completed and am on 2/3 of the way through it again. And I'll tell you what, my life has changed. My life is transformed into something that I never even thought it could be. Joy, peace, happiness, ripple effects all around me. My wife and children changing on journeys of their own now without me having to say anything. People that I've been able to work with in the community, co-workers. My daughter went through Save a Warrior. My daughter-in-law just went through Save a Warrior. I'm watching my grandchildren's lives get changed. I'm watching my children. So I owe everything to Save a Warrior. To really just put it bluntly, I owe everything to Save a Warrior. And
Me too.
And it's also on you, the benefit you are to the community, because I guarantee you're not going through that 500-day plan again alone, and you probably went through it with some people previously, so you're fellow traveling with numerous people, sponsoring people, all that. But congratulations on completing that and working through it again, because that takes something. And the words we use for it, what you experience, Lance, in that is a reversal of thinking. And at some point through that 500-day plan, our thinking starts to reverse. Things that would otherwise have triggered us, would have set us off, started a fight, whatever, got us back into that same reaction of however we do, whether it be isolating and getting depressed or getting angry and fighting or whatever it is. That thinking starts to reverse to where things don't occur in the same way anymore. And then we have choice to like see it and just, oh, whoa, I know where this leads. Let's try this route. I'm going to call a brother and unpack this instead of just rage about it and suppress it, because that's what we learned from childhood, right? Boys don't cry. I'll just push down all my emotions. It'll be okay. I can just white knuckle it through life, because I don't dare want to be vulnerable, and I was much the same. I was terrified to apply to save a warrior. Heck, Larry got tricked into going, as he puts it. But I stared at the submit button for at least 30 minutes, counting all the reasons I don't deserve it. I only had one deployment. I've got all my limbs. I don't have, a wife and kids that depend on me. My family name doesn't carry weight. I haven't made something of myself in life. I was just enlisted. And, I finally had to reason. Well, Jake, you sold your gun because you were scared to have it in the house anymore. Maybe you need to try something new because nothing else has worked. And same here. I owe everything to save a warrior, and how they pointed me to the path. And I'm just so thankful that I had the courage to do that work, just like you had the courage to do that work, because we don't save people's lives. We just point them to the path that will. And they've got to walk down. I can't do the work for anyone. That's the saddest thing with working at Save a Warrior is people fall off the map. People at times will just refuse the call. They won't do the work, or they're not ready. But it's sad just knowing that, like, here's a way out, man. If you would just be open to it, here's a way out of all of that suffering. Because pain's a fact of life, but suffering can be temporary, and we can get out of it.
Yeah, the interesting thing was, discovering that term complex post-traumatic stress. When that term was first presented and started talking about childhood, from 0 up to 18, and my first thought was, oh shit, we're going to talk about that. I buried that so many years ago. I mean, I slammed the door shut on that. Okay, all right. So I guess we're going to talk about that. And it brought up a lot of stuff because I didn't realize back then, that I had dissociated a lot of my childhood. It was almost like after traveling through the laundry list and everything, I realized that there were a lot of times where I kind of was standing off to the side, watching this stuff happen to somebody else. It seemed like, my father was not an alcoholic or anything, but he was a rageaholic. And the beatings with the belt were savage, sometimes, and the screaming and yelling and the belittling while that was happening. I just thought it was almost like it happened to somebody else. And so when we started going through this work and realizing that, oh, those things affect you as a child and then carry into your adulthood and basically formed you to who you were, And then I had the flip side of I had two households. I had my mother's and then I had my father's. So my father's was full of rage and beatings and all that. And then my mother, who was a heroin addict from the time I was in kindergarten, and then she transitioned into a methamphetamine addict. And so I grew up with that and a lot of craziness in the house. And, she was there, but she wasn't there, and always looking for the next high. So there was a lot of insanity that happened during my childhood. So when I started dealing with that stuff, things got really clear about why I was the way I was now. Why did I pick up this trait? Why did I pick up that trait? Why do I react so severely to my wife raising her eyebrow at me? Why do I go into fight or flight because someone raises their eyebrow at me? Well, through this work, I've learned why. It was like her eyebrow raise signified dissatisfaction with me, which signified danger, either abandonment or being wrong or whatever. And that was life or death in my lizard brain. So, So this stuff goes so deep, but you have to if you want to live a big life.
Yeah, the way I always lay it out on rostering calls is really what we're facing is an identity crisis. And, it's an identity crisis having an identity crisis, because we've also got the one from being in the military, and then we get out and it's like, who am I now? What's my purpose? But what a lot of us don't look at, and it's why it surprises most of us when we get into the childhood trauma, and it surprised me too. It's like, when are we going to get into the real shit? When are we going to get into the stuff that happened overseas? And it came around to me. I was like, I had a great childhood. But what I didn't realize is my identity came online in childhood, and it was, I'm scared all the time. And I felt defective because, my dad was an alcoholic. No matter how good I was or what I did, I couldn't get him to stop drinking. And he drank himself to death by the age of 53. And that saddened me. And I could see the sorrow and the shame and the guilt in his eyes my whole life. I just didn't know what to do with it. But what impacted me the most is just the meaning I made up about him not showing up again and again. It's, I must not be enough. It's normal for other kids to have their dad in their life. Why doesn't mine want to be in my life? I must not be enough. And I can't trust people. No one's coming back for me. And the world's not going to be fair to me. I'm not going to get what everyone else gets. And I just lived life inside of that concept. And then every subsequent experience after that came online when I was like 4, I just was seeking to validate that was right. So anytime I got my ass kicked, anytime I got a falling out with a friend, anytime I got in trouble or whipped or anything, it was just, yep, see, I knew it. This is just the hand I was dealt in life. So I tried like hell to hide that from everybody, make everybody think I was, smart enough, good enough. I hustled hard enough, but none of it filled that void, because everything I did came from that space of, I'll never be enough. And that's a miserable way to go through life. And then you just add on top the traumas from deployments and just failed relationships, later in life. And it's one of those ends up becoming the straw that broke the camel's back for us. But we've been living adrift for most of our lives, since we were 4 or 5, and just not realizing it, not realizing that those strategies that we thought served us are the ones digging us into this hole. And that revelation for me, going through all this, just blew everything wide open. Seeing that like I made all that up. No one did that to me. No one made up that I'm not enough. I decided that and chose to live in it. And that's one thing I love about this so much, because it's not about blaming our parents. I've been in, some rooms where I hear people continually blaming their parents for everything, but getting to that blameless point to where I can appreciate all of that. I can appreciate that I learned how to read a room rather quickly, and even somebody's tone of voice, and see how safe it is and what's going on in that environment. Like I learned from all this stuff too, so I don't have to resent it.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because living in both households that I lived in, both made me a good cop. I mean, because I could read people in a nanosecond, and I loved that fact. And it also, it was very easy for me to relate to a lot of different people, because I was used to putting on different masks to deal with different people in life. So when I became a cop, to transition from the authoritarian to the counselor to the friend to the hard at, whatever needed to be put on, I could do it. And it made me a good cop. It helped me have a very good career. But when you start reading your wife's facial expressions and your children's facial expressions, and what they're thinking, and you tell them what they're thinking, that doesn't work very well. It pushes people away. And I did it my whole life, and my wife and kids had to recover from that, and I had a lot of anger issues too. I mean, I would put holes in walls, I would break dishes and plates and bowls, and yell and scream, and, get big, and it's scary, and I scared my family to death.
Because you're already big.
Yeah, I'm already a big guy. And so to get bigger with anger is just, it's not a pleasant thing. And it has taken a while, and it's still a work in progress to repair the relationships with my two younger daughters that have grown up, with that, and my older kids. But I have a sponsor who told me, hey, when you're getting ready to respond to something or react in a certain way, just pause and ask yourself three questions. Does this need to be said? Does this need to be said right now? Does this need to be said by me? And I'll tell you what, that's been one of the most powerful things to go on in my mind, to be able to pause before correcting someone, giving my opinion, handing down my life lesson that I think is true, and just shutting up. Just shutting up and being there with the people that I love, being present and enjoying their company without me having to, you know, right the wrongs of the world all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's been absolutely huge.
And you'd said it earlier too, that your family's on their own kind of spiritual journey and journey of recovery, and it wasn't from you pushing it. And that's another thing we teach, is just the best thing we can do for the people in our lives that we love is to focus on our own healing. And it's all just show don't tell, showing them that, like, hey, I'm willing to put in the work with this stuff, and it's like they see that it's paying off, so they get curious about it, and oftentimes start on their own stuff too. But it's what we're coming up against with stuff like that is they have a certain listening for us. They've seen us show up a certain way for how many years, before you went through this. So they're expecting that other shoe, you know they're expecting the other shoe and just waiting for it and waiting for it. And after a while, they're like, oh, well, maybe that shoe isn't going to drop. Maybe this is who he is now. And that just leaves it on us to catching ourselves, to continue with the practice of meditation, especially for doing that. So I can be like, ooh, pause and catch the words before they come out of my mouth, you know, and strip away, whatever meaning I made up about how they're acting and how wrong it is. And I found the greatest thing to take all the drama out of my life is just never make anyone wrong, even if I completely disagree with them. If we're not in a place where they're looking to me to counsel them or coach them on something, I'm not just gonna tell them that, unless there's extremes, like a buddy who's in the grips of addiction is like, you need to get some help, man. But for the most part, I'm not gonna just argue with somebody just to be right about something, because it's not worth the drama, and it's not worth the way that it affects the relationships.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I missed the memo for the first year, though, of trying to tell my wife all these fantastic things that I've learned and my different ways that I'm learning how to be in life. And so, of course, it's great. So you want your loved ones to have it. It's like, please, here, let me give you this, let me give you, but they don't want it. When you're trying to give it to them. So when I finally learned to just shut up and let my wife be my wife. Let her be however she is. Let her show up in the world however she shows up without my preferences. Uh, all of a sudden, I'm finding out she is on a journey through the ripple effects of how I am now showing up in life every day. So it's counterintuitive. All of this seems very counterintuitive. Just surrender and everything will be good. It's exactly what happened. When I let go of all of the stuff that I thought I knew growing up, the stuff that I thought I knew as a cop or as a Marine, when I let that stuff go and say the words, I don't know, there's a lot of freedom in that, because I don't have to know everything, and now I can just kind of let things go and just be the best person that I can be and continue to do the work every day.
Yeah, I love that. That's what it takes for having a really powerful relationship. Werner Erhard has this video on relationships on YouTube, and basically what he gets down to is a lot of people aren't built for relationships, because a lot of times we go into them wanting to fix and change people. But to have a really powerful relationship, you just have to love that person for whoever they are, whoever they declare themselves to be, and be a stand for whatever they want to go after in life. Even if it's like some crazy stuff, even if your wife's wanting to start this business and then that one, be a support for all of it, you know? Uh, and love him through all of it and don't try to change him or anything like that. But another key is whatever you're looking to experience in that relationship, if you feel like there's not enough ecstasy, if there's not enough spice in it, whatever, you show up as being ecstatic for who that person is, and you got a much better shot of experiencing ecstasy in that relationship. So it's, if you just come from whatever you feel is lacking and you just choose to, like, no, I'm just gonna be this. I'm gonna be joyous, I'm gonna be happy, I'm gonna be fun, because she's not fun enough. Instead of her not being fun enough, you just start being fun, and you'll start to see that it takes one person to transform a relationship. That doesn't mean we have a magic crystal ball, like, come to Saul and your relationship's gonna work. It's not how it works. We can't see the future, but we know some best practices that can give you a much better shot at getting there.
Well, talking about the relationship with my wife is unbelievable now, and it doesn't have to do with ecstasy as much as it has to do with intimacy. She'll come sit by me now, throw her leg over my leg while we're watching TV. We hold hands now, and there's just a stronger emotional, spiritual connection between the two of us. It's just gotten stronger and stronger and stronger, and it's just amazing, and that whole need for the sex part or whatever, it's not as important to me. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's still nice, but it's not as important to me anymore. It's not like if that doesn't happen, I'm gonna have an attitude about it, or I'm gonna be resentful about it, because I'm not attached to that anymore. I love my wife.
Yeah, I get it. I got a baby in the house now, so that ship has sailed. But what I look at is I got a baby in the house now, which is so amazing. And yeah, that intimacy is such an amazing thing. I use that example because that's what he talked about. Like, the person that he was interacting with in the video talked about ecstasy. Probably an odd example. I don't know many people that are like, I don't experience enough ecstasy, but intimacy, we all know, could probably build. Uh, and that is the most amazing thing. What I
Well,
love
don't
to
get me
do with my
wrong, the
wife is
ecstasy's
little,
gotten better too.
yeah. We do little dances as we're going from the car up to, whatever restaurant or grocery store we're going to. I'll just grab her hand and do a little twirl with her and stuff like that. I don't like dancing, but she loves it.
Hmm.
And I just love being able to provide her with an experience that she finds such joy in. So it's like I win too. I think there's a word for that. It's like compersion or something like that. That I
Hmm.
get joy from her having joy. Uh, that's what I aim for. Lance, I'm really curious. You got the spar ride coming up.
Yeah.
Could you tell us about that and what else going on with that, with the mental health symposium, everything that you guys out there in Boise have put together? Because, like, it took something to build what you've created with that.
Well, yeah. Well, what it took is me finding people to run with that, really, because my idea was about a year ago. I just said, you know what? I'm going to ride from Idaho to Warrior Village. I'm going to try to make some noise along the way and see if I can raise a little bit of money and just spread some awareness. So I have a friend of mine I've known for about 10 years, and she used to fundraise professionally. So I just went and had coffee with her and asked her about, what would you do if you were me to try to make this, work? And she started talking, and then next thing you know, she's saying, well, we can do this and we can do that and we can do this. And I was like, oh, are you saying you're involved? Because I ended up telling her my story as to why I went to Save a Warrior and what got me there. So she was moved by it, and she said, yeah, I'm on board. So she came up with the mental health symposium, and then we got Courageous Survival on board. Survival, which is run by another Save a Warrior alumni here in Idaho, to use as our
Briggs.
local nonprofit. Yeah, Jackie Briggs. So we use that. So, and then my daughter is involved in the symposium also. So it just kind of went from this little idea, and now it's turned into a much bigger idea. I started the patch challenge, challenging organizations to donate a minimum of $500, and I would take their patch and put it on my vest, and they would be riding with me back to Warrior Village, showing that they care about this issue of 22 veterans a day committing suicide, and who knows how many first responders. I don't know that they've done enough studies on that, but it's a lot. And then it's going to be displayed at the Center of Excellence once I get there, which this is happening next week, by the way. The symposium is happening the day before I leave on September 8th, and we're going to be live streaming that, and also it's going to be in person. So the cost that we put on that is $22 for obvious reasons. 22 veterans a day take their lives, so we wanted to make the cost affordable, but at the same time significant. So Jake Clark is flying out from Ohio to speak. There's going to be other alumni traveling in to speak. I'll be speaking and telling a little bit more of my story. But I'll tell you what, it's picking up speed. In Ohio, especially, the VFW riders are going to come out and grab us at the Indiana border, and they'll probably be over 200 bikes escorting me into Warrior Village. One of the alumni, Eric Kreitz, is actually shipping his motorcycle out here to Idaho just so he can ride all the way back to Ohio with me. Charlie Johnson is riding his motorcycle all the way out from Illinois to Idaho so he can turn around and ride all the way back to Ohio. And that's how much they think of Save a Warrior. And then I have an alumni locally here who is going to be our chase vehicle, and she's going to drive and follow us all the way out to Warrior Village, and then she's going to go on a little road trip after that. And our fundraiser just told me this morning that she wants to see this thing through all the way to the end, so she is now going to be in the chase vehicle with Michelle. So yeah, it's gotten big.
Yeah.
We're over 30K already. We just heard yesterday we're over 30,000 that we raised, and I project we'll easily go over 50 by the time we're said and done.
Just like stepping back and looking at how beautiful that is too, just amazes me. One thing you didn't see at Save a Warrior back when it was 5 days, the last movie that we would watch and unpack was Life of Pi. Because that movie shows that you can choose to write a different story. You know, because with the stuff from our past, like we can decide, and there's a distinct difference between deciding and choosing. You know, look at the last part of that word, decide. It's like to cut off, to kill. And we can decide what from our past to bring forward. Because a lot of times what we're doing with our stories is we're enrolling people in our own suffering. You know, we're enrolling people in our victimhood, and, you know, how it's not our responsibility, any of this stuff going on in our life. It happened to me. But when you can shift your story, which you've done, Lance, which is beautiful, it enrolls people into the possibility of something in the future and something good. You know, you're enrolling them in the possibility of saving a life or many lives and getting a lot more people to that path that can provide a transformation like you've been able to have. And like that's such an amazing thing. And it all just came from your story. All you shifted is how you have it with that story. Same story, same stuff that happened. It's just not that stuff's fault anymore. It's like this stuff happened and it got me to where I needed help and I got it. And now it's a story that can empower people and help them, you know, decide to transform their lives. And that's, you know, exactly what I was hoping to capture here, because you're a bad mamma jamba, you know. And
well, you know, an
ahead.
interesting point you make is, you know, when I look back at my story in the past, you know, with my childhood and the chaos and all that stuff, and some of the things that happened in my adulthood as well, it's like, oh, that was the worst time of my life. That was the worst thing that ever happened to me. That was horrible. And I would tell you all these stories about why it was so horrible. And really all I was doing was justifying why I am the way I am today. Because look at what happened to me. If you had these things happen to you, you'd be the same way, right? But that's not the case anymore. Now those things, like me having the gun pressed up to my head, finger on the trigger, round in the tube, with a voice saying, do it, do it, do it, do it. That's like the best thing that ever happened to me now, because it allowed me to open my eyes and say, holy shit, I need some help and I need it now. And so when I talk to, you know, I work in the sponsorship program a lot, you know, with Save a Warrior. I talk to a lot of alumni. I travel with a lot of guys. My worst experiences that I've ever had in my life now are my best experiences I've ever had in my life, because I'm allowed to share them with a fellow human being, to say, look, I get it. I was there. That happened. Here's how I was able to get past that. Here's how I was able to heal from that. And man, when you share your experience with someone and you see the light bulbs come on, like, oh, this guy really knows what he's talking about, um, and then watch them shift, watch them get it, and then move on their path of healing. There is nothing like that. There is no greater satisfaction that I've ever had in my life than to watch someone else heal.
Yeah, storytelling's one of the things I obsess the most with. And there's probably I don't know if they're showing, but probably at least 10 books all on storytelling in the background here. And it's just because stories are the things that can build and break beliefs, you know. And if we're looking to first build a connection with somebody, being vulnerable will do it. And having the story have that happy ending where they see that transformation is available for them just by virtue of it having been available for you and you've been through similar things is the coolest shit in the world. Like it's amazing. And Larry, you get to witness that too on rostering calls, right? Like we don't see it happening because it's on the phone, but noticing
The
that shift in people.
the yes, I do. But the one thing with the storytelling, first of all, I identify completely with your story, Lance. Me too. Very similar experience. Um, and as you learn in other books, when we tell certain stories, it triggers part of our memory, and we feel the emotional response that we had when we told that story. And unless we have this sort of awareness that you have now, we identify with those emotions and we become the story. And so I am the broken down veteran. I am the broken down first responder because I identify with those feelings and those things inside. I know the Lance after Save a Warrior. I mean, I identify completely with your story up to coming to Save a Warrior. Um, Thank you for being vulnerable. Vulnerability is a strength, not a weakness, by the way. I didn't know that till after Save a Warrior. Before I thought vulnerability was a weakness, and so I shared nothing with anybody about the real internal things that were going on inside my head, and it created an idea in my head that I am terminally unique. I am completely broken, and it's in these rooms of recovery where I hear other stories just like you telling yours. Oh no, that I identify with that completely. Oh wait a minute, I'm not terminally unique about anything. And the Lance that I know is the one that is running guys through the 12 steps, is the guy paying his life forward, doing all kinds of things, even raising money. And did you ever think, just pause for a second, think how many lives you have touched, inspired, saved since you had the gun to your head? Like when I had the gun to my head, I had this utter sense of failure, which you articulated. And to me, suicide was the only honorable thing a person could do if they were in this position. And I had no idea the value I would have to other people's lives after I recovered. But I had to trust the warriors on this path before me, and we're all following each other. And you have been a complete blessing, not only to save a warrior, but how many individual people um, attribute you. In your wisdom, your sharing of yourself, and your healing. The best thing I can do for the people that I love is focus entirely on my own healing. I thought that was bullshit the first time I heard that. I thought that was selfish. But the people that told me that had never lied to me before, so I guess I'll give it a shot. And the weird thing is when I make my recovery the number one priority of my life, like above all else, I recovered. I recovered from complex PTS. And now it's a complete blessing to even be in this podcast with you. I love you, brother. I'm going to go back and just be quiet. Um, and another thing that you said too, once I recover, and I have healing, I have peace, I have all that, and I have clarity of mind. Yeah, now instead of looking back at my past, like that abusive childhood that I went through, when I show up at boot camp and I'm seeing those other kids for the first time, what I don't know is I'm looking at other kids exactly like me. They're coming from the very same environment, and we're all making this silent agreement that we're going to start reinventing ourselves right here, right now. And so I start, that little kid that came from that abused house, he's dead. I don't even know who that is anymore. I'm Larry the Warrior or whatever. And I start reinventing myself again, trying to, until that breaks down. I end up with a gun towards my head. I go through Save a War. I get to reinvent myself again. I, I, I am whatever I decide to be. And Save a War gave me that power. I, I can focus on my own healing, heal myself, and then come back for others. And that's what you're doing. You're doing that tremendously. Um, I love and applaud you, brother. Thank you for being Lance Santiago.
Well, thank you for being Larry Turner, because you, for me, are one of those warriors that are walking on the path ahead of me. Both of you guys are. When I was going through the rostering process, I was in deep trouble. I tried to sabotage my going to Save a Warrior a couple of times. 2 days before flying out, I don't think I've told either one of you guys this. 2 days before, I manufactured a huge argument with my wife, yelled at her, called her a bitch, got out of the car, and I had my RV right there, and I knew I had a Glock 22 loaded in there. And my plan was, I was so my ego was trying to sabotage me so badly that my idea was to go in there, walk in, pull that gun out, and blow my head off right there. 2 days before, and I know it was. Well, I believe it was my ego trying to say, no, 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 no. You're not going to go do a bunch of changing stuff. We like it just the way it is in here, you know. And Jake, you were there countless times. I called you up during that process to give me some guidance and advice, which wasn't easy for me because you're younger than me. So how can you possibly know more than I, right? But I found myself calling you, several times, saying, "Hey, I'm running into this. What do I do?" And you gave me, solid suggestions. One of them was, "Hey, meditate." Well, meditate. But I'll tell you what, that meditation saved my life. I started meditating twice a day, and in 7 days, at the end of 7 days, I got to the point where I thought, I don't think I need to go to Save a Warrior because this meditation thing works so well, right? But I was reminded like the next day, you still need to go, fool. Don't don't think you're all cured and everything. But can we talk about the universe for a minute?
Yeah, I'd love to.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the way I look at it is, whether you have universe, God, higher power, whatever your version is, I look at it that the universe was trying to call me on the telephone numerous times, and I wouldn't answer the call. Several little hints. Hey, you need to do something, dude. And so that day, and there was a couple things that happened before that, but that day that I'm up in my Jeep with that gun to my head, that was the universe calling loudly, saying, "Dude, you better do something now, because you're." I don't know. Are we supposed to cut? Are we not to cuss in here? I'll watch.
Probably all.
I don't know.
We're
the
all
rules.
adults.
I don't know.
We're all adults.
Yeah. So the universe is saying, "Dude, you better do something now. You're fucked." And I knew. I mean, I'd never had a gun to my head, so I knew it, right? So to answering the call was, putting in for Save a Warrior. But how I heard about it was, I told you that one of my Marines had a heart attack. We all flew back to Jersey, about a dozen of us, to honor him. He was one of my best guys, man, and everybody loved this guy. And while there, Dan Mercer, who's an alumni, he tells me, "Hey, I got to leave it tomorrow. I can't stay here for this whole weekend. I got to go. I'm going to this place called Save a Warrior. And, I'm good and everything. I had somebody else lock up my guns and all this stuff, and I'm going to this program. They're going to take my cell phone from me. So I won't be able to reach you, but I'll hit you as soon as I'm out." And I'm like, "Yeah, all right, cool, man. Love you, brother." And I'm just getting sloshed, right? And so he tells me he's going to be out on Wednesday, and he'll hit me up. Well, it just so happened that I'm in my Jeep with that gun to my head on a Wednesday afternoon. You can't make this shit up, man. I got my gun to my head. My phone alerts me I got a text. I look down, it's Dan Mercer. There's 7 words on the text. It says, "I'm out, save my life, period, stop." That was it. But I knew what he was talking about. And I didn't jump for joy. Oh, I found it. I found the Holy Grail. I'm saved or anything like that. But it took me out of my mindset just long enough to get me to drive off that hill. It took me out of my thinking at the time. I absolutely know that was God. That was the universe saying, your work's not done here yet, man. Are you going to answer the call? And so then the universe plays another trick because they know that the universe knows me well. My ego is too massive to apply for a suicide prevention program. So God gave me COVID the next day, and I was unconscious. I was in and out of consciousness. I didn't know what the heck was going on. And me and Dan Mercer are texting during that time, and he's trying to get me to submit, an application. And I don't remember any of these conversations, by the way, not one of them. I don't know what happened, but somehow I hit submit. And I don't think I would have had I not gotten COVID and was so far out of it. And even my rostering call with you, Jake, I don't remember a lot of it. So, there are miracles in this work. There are miracles that happen, and they happen for a reason. Another one is when I went to Save a Warrior, and I remember having a conversation with you, Jake, at the end of my cohort, where I was still thinking, well, I won't drink as much. I'll just drink wine or something with my steak. And you were like, well, why would you drink it all? And I'm like, well, yeah, that's a possibility, I guess. But I had already agreed to go through the 12 steps because what the heck, I'm there. I might as well learn some more, right? But I'm not an alcoholic. Well, I realized within 2 hours of cohort ending that I was, in fact, an alcoholic. And which was also a very freeing and eye-opening revelation. Well, he hands me he says, hey, you might want to call this guy. He lives in Idaho somewhere. All right, cool. Well, I'm still talking to Jake, for a couple weeks afterwards. And I asked him, I said, hey, can you give me that number of that guy you were talking about? He says, yeah. So I contact. Come to find out at the time, he's 37 years something sober in AA. He lives 4 miles from my house.
Wow.
I got no words for that. I travel all the way to Ohio to get healing. I come back and this guy lives 4 miles from my house. And now we see each other. I talk to him almost every day. We go to dinner every week. We go to a meeting together every week. We have 5 alumni that join us every week.
We got to hit on where that dinner's at.
Oh, Sizzler.
At the Sizzler.
At the Sizzler.
Larry maintains that Ponderosa is the greatest steakhouse there is, but I think Sizzler
in all of Hillsboro. In all of Hillsboro.
In Hillsboro.
And I've been to the Ponderosa in Hillsboro, and it's not bad, Larry. I concur. But we also, and not only that, but the power in our Tuesday night men's AA meetings, I'll tell you what, because we got 5 alumni in there. And we have my little brother's sober now. Because of what we're doing here. We have probably 10 people that join us for dinner, and then we roll to our meeting, and it's powerful. It keeps us on the band, man. It's you can't script this stuff, man. You just can't. It's amazing. And the miracles and the levels of growth that keep happening while doing this work. I can't explain it. I cannot tell you. There's no math to calculate the levels of healing that I've gone through and continue to go through today. Didn't mean to pontificate that much.
Oh, you're great. Well, thank you for everything you've shared. Uh, Powerful, really powerful. And thanks for everything you're doing, putting together that spot red. And I get like it's supporting Save a Warrior, but it's for the men in the seats.
Absolutely.
That's how I hold everything. I work for the men in the seats and the women in the seats, you know, because I know what it's like to be in those places. Like you mentioned a couple of times with the gun to your head, and it's not us thinking at those times. But the thing is, we think we need to die, but the reality is there's a part of us that we need to kill off, and that's what we get some access to doing, and the death of that child psychology that we've been trapped inside of for so long, so that we can actually start taking responsibility for our lives. Responsibility is very important, but it's focusing on our own healing so that we can actually start taking responsibility for bigger and bigger things, and start being a stand for things beyond us and our family unit, and creating amazing things in the world just by virtue of speaking it into being. That's what you did, talking to the woman, I don't know if you said her name, that was familiar with fundraising, that immediately shifted it into a we. you know she saw the possibility that you were speaking about, and that's our greatest power as human beings, is our ability to manifest. And like the only way that can ever happen is if our word actually matters, not just to us but to other people as well. If they know you as somebody who's going to follow through on your word, because it shifts everything at that point. You can actually speak things into existence, and you've done that with the spar ride, and I'm sure you're going to continue to do things. You've done that with your family being transformed, your life being transformed. You decided at one point and chose, I'm going over here, like I'm going down this path. I'm going to get well. I'm going to do what it takes. And you're someone just like Larry. Both of you are two people that just like go all in with seemingly everything you do. And you did the same with your healing journey. And that's why we're on this call here today, is because you made that choice and made another choice and made another choice, and every single day make a choice, that continues taking you towards that future self that you've declared that you can be, and that you're calling it into the now. You are that person right now, and living from that. It's so beautiful and such a blessing to be able to know you, interact with you, both of you. And thank you so much, Lance, for coming on and sharing with us. One last quick thing: what's a website where people could connect with the spar ride and get involved
We
with that?
Yeah, we don't have a website. We have a web or a Facebook page.
Perfect.
Um, so if you type in, the suicide or Save a Warrior suicide awareness prevention awareness, sorry, Save a Warrior suicide prevention awareness ride, you should be able to find it. And
Okay.
one thing I didn't mention is that we'll be when I get there, I'll be shepherding a cohort, and there's now 4 different people that are going to be that have already rostered for that cohort that I'm somehow connected to. So it's going to be interesting to talk about the universe again.
Yeah, that's neat. That's what happens when you start doing the work. People either hear your story and connect with it, or you're able to see the suffering in their eyes and actually just have a straight conversation with them and point them to what helped you, also probably
Oh
through
yeah,
using your story.
helps me when I help another guy either get sober or get to the seat. It helps me way more than it helps them. It really, really does, because it lifts me up. It fills me up more than anything ever has in my life.
Yeah, that keeps us from doing all our crazy shit, right?
Exactly.
As Uncle Brad would say. It keeps me from doing my crazy shit.
Had
Alrighty.
enough of that.
Well, that's all I've got for this. Thank you again. Larry, you have anything to close this out?
No, I just put the link to his Facebook thing up there. I don't.
Yeah, I'll make
It's
sure to
Facebook
drop that into the
saw
description.
1043.spar SPAR.
Yeah, and we will be live blogging all the way across country, because I forgot to mention we're going to be stopping at American Legion posts, VFW posts, to spread the word of Save a Warrior, because this is part of this ride, the reason for the ride is to spread awareness that this program exists so that other warriors can look at it and go, well, maybe I should take a look because I want to kill myself. So, yeah, maybe take a look at this before you do that.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for what you're doing with that.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I love you both. And
Love you, Lance.
it's been the Shifter Drift podcast. Might be what we call it.
Outstanding.
Shifter
I love
Drift.
both of you guys, man. I appreciate you both.